Right, welcome to the Haverhill Area Working Party. If we can sort of start off, and if we can start with apologies for absence, please, Claire.
Yes, Chair, I've had apologies from Councillor Paul McManus and Alaric Pugh from 1 Haverhill.
Thank you. Do we have any substitutes? No, we don't. Not I'd like to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of September 2014 with a copy attached. Are you happy to adopt those minutes? I propose up and Derek, can I have a seconder? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, interests.
Yeah, we usually do those as you go along, so I usually do this at this point. So yeah, but you can raise your interests at any point as they come forward. You don't have to prior notice if you don't want to, but we usually do it once we've done that sort of section. So if there are any declarations of interest, if anybody wants to raise them now, please do, Anne.
No, not a declaration of interest, but you were talking about the minutes.
Yes.
On page 1, under minutes it says a response regarding minute 11C is provided in minute 20C below. I didn't quite understand that because it was asking about county council officers attending a future meeting. I just want to know if we've asked them.
Good point.
This was discussed later after the meeting, if you recall, at the agenda planning meeting, and that was going to be dealt with by 1 Haverhill, I believe.
Oh right, okay. Yeah. Should that not be reflected in?
Well, that was considered after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you have any declarations?
Sorry, monthly interest items 5 and 6. I'm a member of 1 Haverhill board and I'm on the same master plan.
Okay. I don't think you have to notify on Haverhill,
No, I can note it down just for the interest of transparency, then that's fine.
Okay. Any other? Okay, good. Right. Moving to item 4, we have the Chauncey Mills Regeneration Design Principles consultation. Can I please, before I introduce sort of speakers, can I please actually give you a note that members of the Working Party who are also members or substitute members of the Development Control Committee that may consider any subsequent planning applications in respect of this area are reminded of the desirability of avoiding the appearance of bias and predetermination in what they say about the matter. So, official, but you need to take it into
I will do my very, very best.
Thank you. Okay, so if I could hand you over to Ian Paul in a second, and I would like also to introduce you to Mike Carpenter and Chris Surfwood, who are going to speak on the paper too. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Ian.
Chair, thank you. Just by way of background, back in December 2010, the Borough Council adopted a development brief for the Chauncey Mill site. Primarily, the brief set out sort of the importance of buildings on the Chauncey Mill, the site currently occupied by Gertines. The whole site effectively is a listed site. All the buildings are listed apart from 1 or 2 minor ones. And any future development of that site and certainly potential sort of loss of any historic buildings and listed buildings would have to clearly be treated quite sympathetically. The development brief at the time identified buildings, although of listed building and historic nature, identified those of high importance, moderate importance, low importance, and no importance at all. And it was on this basis that the Borough Council received a planning application in mid-2013 for the demolition of some of those buildings to enable really the buildings of high importance to be used more fully. English Heritage at the time objected to that application, as is typical not of this situation but across the country, in that they wanted to see what the future uses of that site would be. So it's not just a straight demolition without seeing that there will be some merits and benefit of that demolition. As a result of ongoing discussions between planning officers, English Heritage and the applicants and their agents. We have asked, and the applicants have agreed to prepare a design principles document that addresses just that, the potential future uses of the areas where buildings would be demolished. As part of that process, we have asked the applicants to do some consultation and engagement with organisations locally, including One Haverhill and the Area Working Party. Gave a presentation to the One Haverhill Town Centre Core Group last week, and they are here this afternoon to discuss it, or not discuss it, but give a presentation on the draft design principles document that is being submitted in support of that application that was made to the council, say, sort of some 18 months ago. So I'd like to hand over to Mike Carpenter on behalf of the applicants to talk you through that design principles document.
Thank you. Is it easier if we come up there so we're
Yes, please
looking
do.
at the street
Yeah,
at the
please
same
do.
time? Great. Chris is actually going to do most of the talking because this gets to design principle stage. I'm not a designer. I'm just a planner, like Ian. I would like just a planner. I think the first thing I should say is that we've also presented to Haverhill Town Council just before we did to One Haverhill, and in fact I was totting up how many times I've been to see. This is the 4th time in all those years. And so those of you who have been at the first meetings, you've probably seen the age as the years have gone by. But so the first time was in October 2009, and then some of you had a tour of the premises, and then we've updated you as we've gone along. And it sounds like a long time, but during that period, a lot's been going on. A lot's been going on with Gertines as well, assessing their business and what is possible with their business. So I thought I'd just put a slide up which is just gives you a bit of that timeline, just to see it. You can't read all that, but the first bit of that up to this bit here is where we adopted that development brief that Ian was talking about. Then there was a break for a couple of years while we were just carrying on, Gertie's were carrying on with the business and looking at what else could be done and the best way of running the business. They then came to the view that they can consolidate their operation into a smaller part of the building, and they can also use, particularly the French Gothic building, which is the building that we all see, it's the most prominent building. They can use that better, and you'll see in a moment from the plans why I say that. So the proposal came forward then with an application submitted in July 2013, as Ian said, an application for listed building consent to demolish some of those buildings. None of the buildings that were identified as the most important. So these are all buildings of either no importance, low importance, or moderate importance. And we'll come to a little bit of that history before we get on to the design principles document. But as Ian said, we've been in discussions with St Ed's, what do you call West Suffolk now? I'm not quite sure. The Borough Council over that period of time, and with English Heritage, just to ensure that they know what we're doing and they are inputting into that document. And that discussion has gone on for a fairly long time now as we get to this stage. And we've always been keen to keep you updated as to what is going on there. So this is another stage of that. We're hoping the application will go to committee sometime next year, early next year. But it's only after this document has been finished and the English Heritage have become comfortable with it. And I think it's fair to say that English Heritage have been a party to the discussions in drawing up this latest document. So just very briefly, Ian referred to the buildings that were identified in the development brief as important and moderate importance, low importance, and so on. And the colours mean something. I'm sure you can see those from there. But the important buildings are Building 7, which is the French Gothic building, which is the prominent building on the site. And whatever happens, we must find a way of retaining that. And that is, a lot of this is about that, because Building 8, which is of moderate importance, so that's part of the Northlight factory, which is not the oldest part of the Northlight factory. The Northlight factory, the oldest part, is Building 4, And if you remember when you went round the site, it was all a bit mucka, different levels, and it's quite difficult to find your way around. And if you can picture Caroline, which is the steam engine, which used to power all the looms and the machines, that lies in Building 4 running across here. So the most important buildings from our point of view are Building 7 and Building 4. Building 8 is the particularly difficult building for Building 7, and that's simply because it's a site that's grown like topsy over the years. Buildings have been built for a purpose. And you'll remember that this building, North Light Factory, just simply bangs into the back of the original French Gothic building, which means that the back of the French Gothic building at its ground level and a level up, because of the slope of the site, doesn't actually get any light into the back of the building. It's got a wide span building. So the idea has been that we will demolish these buildings of no importance around the edges, and these two buildings of moderate importance, in order to enable us to open up the windows at the back of the French Gothic building again and use the whole of this building for office uses. So it's partly used for offices at the moment, and certainly Gertines use part of it for offices. Some of it is let separately for separate office suites, but everything at the back of the building is basic storage because it's there and it's used by Gertines. And so what we want to do is to open that up, open the windows up again, and then get within there office uses. So a long-term sustainable use for this very important listed building. Building 4 is a very difficult building to deal with, and English Heritage and St Ed's have been very clear that we've got to try our very hardest to find a use for that building. We haven't been able to find use for that building at the moment, but that's no reason to demolish it. And so the view that we've taken from a market point of view and from a design point of view is that if we do some things to these buildings, it will actually make this building easier to let. And the sorts of things, the sorts of ideas that come up, it is just it's an open space, but if you remember again when you went around the building, it's got lots of cast iron stanchions. Cast iron isn't a very robust material to hold the roof up. So it needs a lot of work done to it, but it splits up the space quite a bit. But it's still quite a large space, so it's not something that is going to be particularly useful for. So I'm not going to turn its hand to offices in a very easy way, for example. It's not going to be something that we can use for warehousing, although it's used for warehousing at the moment by Gertines. That's simply because it's there, they own it, and if you remember, they've got a racking system for their suits that come round, and it works okay for them. And of course, time has gone on, and the roads around here don't take the big lorries that come in from abroad to deliver the suits. So it's really not any longer a big warehouse site. But there are sorts of uses there. People have talked about retail, markets, so a destination market in its own right. They've talked about breaking the space up into small industrial, light industrial, rather than stuff that's going to make noise and smell. So breaking it up into light industrial, talking about restaurant, and the idea that we like the sound of, if we can find a market for it, is that you put a restaurant in there, a place where people can go next to Caroline, so they can actually see the history of the site. Gertines as well have a museum on the top floor of the French Gothic building, which, if this scheme goes ahead, then there's an idea of moving that into Building 4 as well as part of that community benefit. But it's all about getting this scheme off the ground and then finding a viable use for Building 4. So that's really what it's about. So what we'd have here is all the buildings except Building 4 and Building 7 would go. Those are the two oldest buildings, they're the most historic buildings, and they're the most prominent buildings on site. And then, as Ian said, English Heritage and St Ed's have said, well, what does that do? That leaves a space at the back here. We've said we can't at the moment say that it's going to be whatever use, residential, more offices or whatever, and there's no point in us saying that when the market is changing all the time, and where there currently is not a market for any of those things. But the question is, what could it be used for? To give people an idea of what it could be used for, and set those design principles now, so that if we come along with an application later on, it's set within those parameters of design principles. So that's the purpose of the design principles document, which they've asked us to prepare, which you'll see in a second. And the last slide from me before Chris gets onto that, this is just the land use in the area. I think I wasn't at the One Haverhill meeting, so I apologise for that, but I think there was some talk at the One Haverhill meeting about, well, we don't want this as a one-use site, and that's absolutely right, particularly residential. And this, in the vision for 2031 and the plan for Haverhill, is identified, is allocated for a mixed-use site. Absolutely right, that is what we also envisage for this site. So the French Gothic building we're looking to turn into offices. Building 4 is probably commercial of some sort that will fit in a town centre. There may be some residential at the back, which you'll see, but the buildings that we're suggesting, the building footprints that we're suggesting, could just as easily be offices or could just as easily have commercial space. And Chris will take you through some of the permeability, some of the pedestrian routes that we're trying to build into it to enable it to be used for any one of those purposes. So it's very much a mixed-use scheme, therefore in compliance with the policy of the local plan. That's what we're trying to create here. The alternative of doing nothing is, I'm afraid, no alternative at all, because the buildings are listed buildings. The Northlight factories, as I say, cast iron, the roofs are in dire need of improvement and repair. They are repairing them, they're keeping them watertight, but that can go on forever. What this really needs is a long-term sustainable use to make it, to retain those buildings. So that's what we're about, and Chris will take you through that design principles document, which will give you a flavour of what might happen to that space. Very importantly, what the listed building consent will tie us to at a later stage, if and when we come along with a proposal to put some buildings up.
Great, thank you, Mike. That should be full screen. No. Sorry. Right, as Mike said, I'll try not to repeat it, but the aim of this document is to set out design principles. It's not a detailed scheme with fully worked out plans or detailed proposals for use. It's setting the scene to give the council and English Heritage sufficient comfort that those buildings which Mike's referred to could be removed to the benefit of the listed buildings that are retained and to the benefit of the use of the site as a whole. So it isn't a detailed proposal. It's showing the position, form, some of the urban design issues for the siting in context, that it would be good to have a level of agreement upon at this stage to enable that decision to be taken regarding the demolition. So this is the front page of the document, and I've chosen selected slides which hopefully indicate the process that we've been through and some of the conclusions that we've reached. To summarise, this is one of the plans for the application. The buildings in blue, light blue, would be the ones that would be retained, and the ones in yellow would be those that would be removed. So the French Gothic building here, and as Mike was saying, the building that collides into the back of it would be removed, so you get natural light, ventilation to the betterment of building 7 in that case, and also removing those additions around the weaving shed here to maximise access into that building and to show it to its better advantage. I can't do that with my left hand at all. I can't do that. So what we always do at the beginning of a project is to consider the site in context. And the site, as you'll see, is the large footprint that it is, right next to the town centre. Certain barriers around the site, boundary walls. You can't walk from here to here without going around the site. So it's a barrier in land use, and it's a physical barrier to movement and use within the town. And to extend that further, I really can't do that. You'll be familiar with a number of the buildings and the spaces around the site. The churchyard, improved recently with the tree which has lightened up tremendously, but a very dead frontage to the churchyard there. And bit at the back of the French Gothic building, you've got the fire escapes and those more modern additions to the back. Not a great environment down there. That's at the very south of the site. You're hemmed in places, and some of the environments are not pleasant, whereas others, such as towards the front of the site, have a very strong identity. And looking at building heights within the site and outside, the French Gothic building rises from 3 to 4 stories as it comes down the hill. Obviously a landmark within the town, and this part of the site, linking onto High Street, has that strong identity. Round at the back, you've got the lower factory buildings, and you're moving down to a sort of 2-storey residential scale in this area. So we want to take into account those relationships and make sure that when we're setting down the design principles, that we're taking those into account and not challenging that landmark role of the principal mill building. Mike's just shown this slide, just to rehearse again the obvious single-use issue of the site. Given the mosaic of uses within the high street that helps improve its viability, you've got the single use. You can't get across the site, and there's principally one use that takes place at the moment, and we want to get to a position where we can achieve a mixed use there. A snapshot of the historical research into how the site developed over time, to see if there are clues towards how the principles of built form might be best utilised in the future. And perhaps you'll know at the top of Mill Lane there used to be a row right at the top of the site there, with frontage onto the lane, which is now that sort of rather barren sort of south end of the site with very little character. So there's some cues there for us in looking at the layouts. Oops, skipped. In terms of the access and movement around the site, I've already said that the site is a barrier to that pedestrian movement. So when you're walking, you've got to go all the way round or round this way. Really, it'd be fantastic to be able to create links through the site that could be well used into and out of the town centre. And also in terms of vehicular access, at the moment, one way in, cul-de-sac, one way out. Equally here, one way in, one way out. Is it possible to achieve some betterment of that as we move to the layouts? And in terms of townscape and the quality of the townscape, I think we'd all recognise that the red brick principal elements of the existing factory have that really strong identity. They are the bits of the site that we think positively and warmly about, and obviously want to see retained. That's not to say that the edges to the churchyard are something we're happy to lose. Absolutely not. But they're very dead frontages. They need use within those frontages. And round on the west side, a jumble of bits and bobs doesn't have a strong identity. Lots of potential for improvement in that area. And so just before we move to the layout stage, just to remind ourselves in the same orientation of the buildings that will be retained in the blue and the buildings to potentially be removed in the red. I'm sorry, you probably can't see those slides very well, but that identifies some of the buildings to be removed at the south of the site, and that's the North Light Shed that runs into the back of the French Gothic building, showing some of the condition and some of the kind of environment that could be improved. So taking a step forward as to how could the site develop in such a way as to provide advantage not only to the buildings retained but in the town as a whole in urban design terms, and want to stress is the achievement of that particular pedestrian route through the site, which could be a well-used route and would also help to support the kind of mixed uses that it could be possible to achieve in the retained buildings, and particularly Building 4. And potentially to the south of the site as well, there's an existing gate here. There's no reason at all why routes couldn't pass in this direction here. And also to the east, with the car park here, and you'll know there's the boundary wall, which currently doesn't have a breach within it. We're showing the potential of that to be another connection point into the site. Whether we can deliver it immediately it would depend on third-party land, but we certainly don't want to preclude that from being a possibility in the future. So we're showing that as a route that could come forward in the future. And as I was saying, in this area up by Mill Lane, very weak townscape here, pretty dire buildings. What we want to try and see if we can achieve is a frontage or a strong built form which doesn't challenge the height or massing of the main listed building, but starts to create a series of elevations that would be attractive to these areas on the south and west of the site. In simple summary, the yellow area shows the land that would be available for redevelopment. The yellow doesn't show all of the land that would be developed, but that's what you'd be left with the buildings removed from the site. So you can see to the west of the churchyard, potential area there onto Chauncey Lane, and then the larger area for development at the south of the site. And overlaying onto that potential built development area, those routes that we want to try and achieve. So we're trying to make sure that, as we put the built form in, we're taking account of all the issues that we saw as opportunities from the outset. And this route over to the west and through the site to the south as well. And before we move on to the layouts and proposals, an idea of the height of a built form that might come forward, and we've talked these all through the English Heritage and the Council. I don't know if you can see the numbers from the back, but the intention would be to create two-storey development at the north end of the site, adjacent to the churchyard, and then using the levels of the land as it rises to the south to achieve 3 and in part 4-storey development, which at modern floor-to-ceiling heights would be no challenge to the retained building. So at all times, eaves and ridge height would not challenge the retained French Gothic building. And one of the key aims, as Mike has said, from English Heritage and the Council, is to make sure that nothing that we put forward now has the potential to compromise that difficult land use for building 4, which we know will be a challenge, but what we don't want to do is put a building in the wrong place that would preclude something from happening in the future. So you won't be able to read the boxes, and I apologise for that, but all these boxes are identifying the things that we need to take account of, keeping maximum access to building 4, keeping the potential of a service route in here, keeping the south light onto this elevation as much as possible. So all the things that are going to make the reuse of that building as flexible as possible. So we've principally developed 2 scenarios which reflect the 2 most logical ways of taking forward all the ideas that we've just sort of run through there. One is, as you'll see, you've got a plan here and a little massing model there, and some sections on the next slide. You'll see here the retained listed buildings, and one of the options is to, just as the French Gothic building does, is to take a form that runs up the hill in much the same way and returns to create this central space, which shows the listed building to its best advantage and creates a nice sense of enclosure between the retained weaving shed, the new build, and the French Gothic building. English Heritage and Council are keen that the built form that goes in is reflective of the scale and massing and character of the existing factory building. So they want to achieve similar depth of plan form, that similar twin pitched roof that you'll see reflected on here. To make sure we're giving enough space around the listed buildings, and to make sure that we're being true to what we said about improving this part of the site. So that's one of the options on plan. And if we go to the models and the section, I'll start with the section first. Hopefully you can see in the background, just looking from the west, so from Mill Lane side, there's the silhouette of the French Gothic building. And in the foreground is the section through the proposed building. So as you can see, ridge height of the proposal is at eaves level of the retained building. So just proving the point that there's no challenge to the prominence of the retained listed building. And the massing, you'll see the new build is in the white, it's taking this L plan form, running up the hill and creating that space which brings all these buildings into a nice group on the site, and also has these elevations from outside which can be treated attractively. The second general approach that we think is appropriate, instead of running up the hill as the existing mill does, is to stagger up the hill. So you're creating levels as you move with the topography. People have preferences, but they're both possible, and both layouts that we're showing are adaptable for whatever use is appropriate as it comes forward. But we thought this was worth putting forward because separate blocks tend to be more readily adaptable than joined blocks. So you could, for example, see this block here being in office or retail in part, or both uses could occupy that, and I'll show you how in a section. And then you could move to a situation where you have residential in these blocks, and it would be easily manageable and constructible as separate units. The other perhaps benefit of this layout is that instead of creating one single elevation from the west, you get a series of views through the retained building, one of which you'll see there. Perhaps the flip of that is you don't get that strong courtyard in the centre, but it's still possible to achieve a good sized landscape space alongside the listed building. And to show that in the section and massing again, looking at the section again looking from the west, you'll see this time you get the views through to the listed building with the blocks in the foreground. Hopefully you can see that on the massing. And what I meant to say here is that block nearest the retained Northlit shed, you can imagine a situation where this is that main route, pedestrian route running through the site. You could have small retail office units there looking onto that views, creating a nice vibrant atmosphere down here, and with offices above, or equally with residential above, accessed within that block. So that would be a very strong potential mixed-use building that supports the use and viability of Building 4. And in all of this, we're trying to keep our proposals as flexible as possible. So depending on the use that comes forward, the principles that we're laying down are consistent with the use that come forward. And one of the main restrictions on, for example, residential use is a back-to-back relationship, so window to window, giving sufficient private garden. That's one of the rules of planning that we need to be thinking of should the use be residential on the site. So this scenario, this is a sort of B version of the one I just showed you, is just to prove that level of flexibility within the plans that we're showing. So based on the blocks that I had before, you could achieve a residential use, you could achieve townhouse use with the back-to-back distances that would comply with policy. So, it's just proving that potential for flexibility in land use. And that's a section which demonstrates that townhouse layout that I just referred to. So the depth of these plans here is slightly narrower for townhouse use, with a back-to-back distance that complies with policy. And I said these aren't detailed proposals, they're setting down principles, and so we've had conversations with officers in English Heritage about the character that those buildings might take as they come forward. And we had a load of images on the table, and these are the two that we came to in the discussions, which seem to reinforce the mill character of the site, that massing, those very distinctive double-pitched roofs, using obviously a palette of materials that is consistent with the listed buildings, but not moving towards a pastiche over traditional appearance. At least that's the opinions received so far. And so these two images seem to capture not an overtly contemporary approach, but a neat, nicely detailed fenestration, but the traditional forms are there, so you get that strong identity coming through the development without harking back too much to anything that competes with the authentic design of the retained listed buildings. And although you won't be able to read all the tiny print here, just to remind that all of this, all that this design principles document demonstrates is that through the demolition of those particular buildings of low and moderate significance, that there can be benefits to the reuse of those buildings on the site. And these are referred to as heritage benefits, public benefits. And you'll see there, you won't be able to read all the bullets, but there's lots of bullet points there, which we hope the layouts, the options shown, would be able to deliver those benefits and support the position for demolition. I think that's the final slide, with back to the front cover. So, very happy to take any questions.
So,
Thank you.
right, I'll open it up for questions. Maureen.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. We all support here saving, our buildings that have been here for a long time, and it is our heritage. However, have you taken into consideration that our high street is pedestrianised between 10 and 4, although people do abuse it at the moment? And even if it's residential, even if it's industrial or residential, the vehicles that's going to create is a major concern. If you're suggesting, as you have, that one of the access points is from the high street. What I would like to emphasise is that we have for many years tried to encourage Mr. Gertine to make an entrance in the wall which is directly next to the car park. That would have solved a lot of problems without currently people driving out onto the high street. It's never happened, but I think I would like to see something more positive about the infrastructure. If you talk about demolition, where's the vehicles going that's going to be responsible for the demolition and then the new build? And if you're going to use access from the high street, you're going to create a monster. So I'd just like you to sort of tell us if you've considered that.
Well, to explain the background to that, I'm happy to. You're right, the discussions about the high street, the pedestrianisation of the high street, have come up many times as we've gone through this process. And the access into Cleveland's yard is one of those aspects. As Chris said, there is no break in that wall at the moment, and it's a listed wall. Although in fact, there are parts of that wall that don't look as if they should be listed. They just happen to be part of a wall that's been repaired in the past. So it looks as if it's quite possible to break through there, although that would require listed building consent as well. What we've said is that this application is only for the demolition of buildings and some internal works into the French Gothic building to allow it to be used for office building. So the floor space on the site is actually going to be less as part of this application. What Chris was explaining about creating the opportunity and incorporating it within this design principles document about improving access is that when you get to a stage when there are new buildings being built on the site and there are new uses that we know what they are, so we therefore know what the traffic generation is in terms of numbers and timing of that access, then this design principles document can be used by the council to almost force the issue that you are now creating more traffic. We're not creating more traffic from this application, but in future, developing this area that's had the removed buildings upon it, we would be creating more traffic, and therefore you have to go into traffic, where it's coming from, what type it is, what time it is that is then the stage to deal with that, rather than at this point. But it's incorporating it within the design principles document, which will be attached to this consent. So anything that follows will have to take account of that design principles document, as Chris said, creating as many possible access points as it possibly can.
Okay.
Tony, welcome to your committee.
Thank you very much. Yeah. As Maureen said, when the demolition is being carried out, there's not going to be very much access into the site for vehicles to carry out this demolition. How are you going to get around that?
Yeah.
That's one point. Second point is building 4, the North Light building. is most probably one of the most interesting buildings on there. The Gothic buildings are architecturally, but for industrial heritage in Suffolk, we haven't got many North-like buildings, and really I'd like to see some really, as in other areas, they've used these North-like buildings for some very innovative uses. So I think you really should concentrate on doing as much as you can, and that will make the site a really interesting part of the town that it could be. But say, the initial phase, what worries me is the amount of, as Maureen said, the amount of vehicle movements coming into the site to actually achieve partial demolition of what's there.
Well, on that side of it, to start with, submitted with the application is what they call a method statement, which is just about that. It's about how you actually carry out the work. And indeed, very importantly, once you've demolished the building, because we're saying that the building 8 here collides with the back of building 7, which is a listed building of high importance. The windows have been bricked up in a fairly straightforward manner. They've been put what became the internal walls have been painted, and so what are we going to do? We're going to reveal all of what was there before and tidy it up. So there's going to be some repointing to be done as well. So in the method statement, there's all of that. Yeah. The other part of the proposal that we've put forward is that we would carry out the demolition over a fairly long period of time, not because we just wanted to cause a nuisance for a long period of time, but because it is the building's in sections effectively. So the areas here where the buildings of no importance are fairly straightforward. They're actually standalone buildings. They're just directly adjacent to building 8. Those would come down first, and then we would take the building 8 down. So that's the newer North-like factory down over a period of time as we improved this building, did the works in this building, and we started to let the space. Because I think what one concern was that we would just come along, demolish the whole lot, cause chaos at that stage, demolish the whole lot, and then we wouldn't actually find the users for the French Gothic building. We don't think that's a problem, but nevertheless it does it in stages, and therefore that kind of controls some of the traffic. There will be, we've got to be honest, when you demolish buildings, well, these are fairly light buildings, but when you do demolish buildings, there is traffic, there is the potential for dust, and the method statement deals with how do you deal with all of that. So it is about dampening the dust and water and also.
What sort of time frame do you think this is going to be going over?
Yeah, well, that's almost a $64,000 question because it relates to how the space in the French Gothic building is then let.
Yeah.
It is to do with the market rather than with us saying we're going to do it over a construction period of such and such. What I should say as well, which I haven't said, is that until we find a use for building 4, Gertings will remain in that, using that as a warehouse. So it will actually continue to have a use, just on a consolidated smaller area.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see that you're keeping building 4 for other uses. It could be a very good use as far as shops and markets and things like that is concerned. There's 2 things really I'd like to bear in mind, overlooking, especially people in Mill Road, and also when it comes to access as well. As cars, I don't know if you're thinking of any car parking in when it comes to the residential side of it. I was just thinking of access for going onto the particular roads, Mill Road and the other road which is in the south as well. So bear that in mind as well. I'd like you to think of that. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm also interested in the timeline because I think Haverhill is very sensitive to the fact that there have been 1 or 2 areas which have been cleared in the town and have stayed in a cleared state for a very long time, really. And this site being such an important site, I think it's really important that we understand the timeline between what happens after the demolition and the first sort of phoenixes that rise from the ashes, if you like. I think that is really, really important that we get an understanding of that. And I'd also like to know, is Mr. Gertine is obviously making the best use of the buildings that he's having to deal with now. Is he likely to continue to occupy the building or the buildings in some way in the future? Or has he got other plans and some of the other bits of the building might become available? I think what's important is, because it's such a prime site, you know, there is a real sort of context to the whole development going forward, not just there's the demolition side of things. I think it's really important we understand the whole view.
Yeah, I agree. We've always been asked by the council to consider the site as a whole, and the development group considers it as a whole, but also to consider the whole site in the context of the town. And I think that's absolutely right, and that's why we've come up with the suggestion of not demolishing the whole lot, just going straight in and ending up with an empty site. Because the reason, one of the principal, and Chris referred to all the bullet point benefits of doing what we're doing, one of the principal benefits is that we give the opportunity for the French Gothic building to come back into full, long-term, sustainable use. But it would be a tragedy if we just came along, wiped everything out, and then we didn't do anything with that building. So it is going to take a time that is related to demolition. It's going to take a time that is first related to this building coming back into use. In the meantime, the area at the back won't just be left as a mud heap. There will be some additional requirements, albeit small, but as you put in more office space, there will be some requirements to move some of the car parking, which, if you remember, the site getting through this little gap here, and we don't want to demolish this building here, so getting through that gap is a little tricky. So we want to create the potential of getting some car parking in the back, but we would then landscape. Part of that method statement is what are we going to do with this in the meantime. So we would landscape this area, we would level it. To be honest, it won't be glorious, the most expensive landscaping that you've seen, but it'll be something that is not boards around the site, and that would be the worst thing in this particular location. So it will be a site in use always, so unlike some of the sites in Haverhill that have just had boards put around them and they're not in use, this is a site that will continue in use. We'll say Gertines will consolidate the warehousing activity into Building 4. It only occupies Building 4 and 8 at the moment, simply because the space is there, they own it, and so they use it, but it can be consolidated into Building 4. They will continue to occupy some of the office space here as they do now, and they will encourage others to use it. As you know, there are other office users in the adjacent buildings. So it's a site in use, and so they don't want it to be an eyesore, because they won't be able to let the space in here if it is just an eyesore. So that's the great advantage of this one over some of the other sites, that everything's demolished and it has no use. It will take time to do it, and I've got to be honest, I cannot say exactly when we will start to come forward with the development proposals on this site, because that will depend upon the market at the time. Very importantly, for the listed building, it will depend upon finding a use for Building 4. Because what we don't want to do, and what has been made absolutely clear to us, is that what we can't do is put something in here as a design detail that then reduces the chances of finding a use for this building. And you can kind of get a feel for things, and we are only talking about possibilities, so if anybody has ideas of what one could use that building for, but there's been suggestions that you could use it as a community facility, community hall, for example. Now that generates noise at a certain time, so what you wouldn't want to do is put residential right next to it, for example. It's that sort of thing. So it's almost that Building 4, finding a use for Building 4 comes before you then build those buildings.
If I can just come back, I think possibly part of the reason that Maureen mentioned the break in the wall is exactly from my perspective because of the pinch point you've got there that makes it so difficult to access the bottom bit of that picture. But, you know, and you're not doing anything to that building, so surely punching through the wall at some stage down there would make a lot of sense.
I stand here and think you're right. I think at some point it will make sense. At the moment, it's third-party land. We don't own all of that land, so we can't do it now. And neither should we be asked to do it now because we're not increasing the amount of traffic that could be accommodated on the site. We're not increasing the floor space. But it seems to me to be perfectly sensible that when you do start to do that, at the next stage, one of the first principles is going to be access, because you're going to be generating more traffic, substantially more, potentially substantially more traffic, but that'll be part of the judgment. You don't want to be granted consent later on for buildings of such a scale and such a use to generate too much traffic. And then equally, of course, if it's going to be commercial uses, you don't actually need car parking on the site, because you've got public car parks and people can use the public car parks. It's the town centre. There are therefore public transport opportunities. There's cycling opportunities. So the actual number of car parking spaces on the site will be dependent upon so many other things. One of which is that it's in the town centre with public car parks. But you might still want to bang a hole through there to make it easier for people to park in the public car parks to walk through.
Thank you.
Tim?
One thing that Haverhill will require, particularly as it grows, is a better retail offer. And have you thought about utilising this site for attracting a major retailer into the town?
Yes, and we have, there was a proposal a long time ago to demolish the whole lot, including the French Gothic building, not from Gertie's but as a promoter, which they thought was entirely the wrong thing to do. You know, just go around demolishing listed buildings. I don't think we've got consent either. That was a supermarket type thing. We are constantly trawling the market. We are constantly studying the market for retail, for those people who want to come to Haverhill. And there's a list of people that want to come to Haverhill, but it's a list of people that want to, retailers that want to come into existing units into Haverhill. What they aren't prepared to do at the moment, but the market may well change, is to come into a new site, which for them is slightly off town centre. So it's off the high street, so you've got to have a reason to go to it, which means you're looking for a big retailer, a big well-known retailer that becomes a destination in themselves. Those big retailers want car parking, those big retailers want big signs up, and they still want to be prominent. So I can see why there's a difficulty in getting, at the moment, the market saying yes, for the big retailers, we want to come to Haverhill, we want to be slightly off town centre, particularly when they've got a listed building there, and particularly when they've got some access difficulties, because as you say, access off the high street isn't really something that is going to carry a lot of vehicle traffic. So yes, we're on the lookout all the time, but the market isn't there yet for that.
Maureen? Yeah, just, I know it's probably going to be the next stage, and there's lots of work to be done, but who's going to have the final decision on exactly what is going to go on the site? Is it Mr. Gertine? Is it what's going on in the market? They've talked about, and I support Tim, and we all do around this table, 100%, that we need a well-known store in Haverhill to encourage others, but we've got a co-op store in Jubilee Walk that's been empty for years, and no one's been very keen to take it on. I blame the Borough Council because of them being so demanding on the parking. They won't give up the parking, which I think most supermarkets like to have their own parking space. So from our point of view, I think this is exciting, I think this is going to be great, but we have problems in the town elsewhere as well. We've got a site that was the project site that's been demolished. There was promises there that within 3 years we were going to have retail, a WIC store, small industrial units. It hasn't happened. So the reason I'm raising these points is, although it's exciting times and it looks good, is this going to happen, or is it going to become a dead site, and who's going to decide what's going on it?
Okay. The answer to your second question is, as I said before, I can't promise that it's going to happen tomorrow or 3 years, and I'm not going to do that. You mentioned a site where there were promises made. This is one of those unusual sites because whilst demolition is involved, there is also, it's demolition for a purpose. It's not for a purpose that somebody else will come along later on and develop the whole site. Demolition on this site, the purpose is to ensure that the other existing buildings, retained buildings on the site, have a life to it. So, unlike the project site, which is just a bare site now and has got boards around it, this is going to be a site in use. And the last thing the marketing people will want is boards around that site, because they'll never be able to market buildings, space within the buildings as a consequence of that. So I think it's very different, thankfully very different, more by luck than judgment perhaps, some good fortune perhaps, that what we've got here is some important listed buildings that are going to be retained. We all want to retain them. And therefore there's going to be a use on the site, and so it's going to look very different to the project site, for example. In terms of who has the final say will be borough councils, because somebody will have to come along and submit an application for planning permission and list a building consent, because it will be on a site that's got a listed building on it.
That's not quite what I meant. Who's going to decide what's going to go to planning, perhaps I should have said, industrial or residential? Is that Mr Gerteen's decision?
Mr Gerteen,
what goes on there?
Yeah, Mr Gerteen will have a say in it, and because it's his land, he can say no to anybody. But he could sell it.
Yeah.
And he could either sell the opportunity, still on his land, but sell the opportunity, or he could sell the land altogether. As I understand it, he has no intention of selling the land at the moment, because he wants to continue to occupy the French Gothic building. He wants to continue to retain the office function in the French Gothic building, which I think is good for the town. That retains the use of a generational use within there. He wants to use the building for. So he has no intention of selling at the moment, but I can't stand here and say it will never happen.
No, I don't expect you to.
But what's important, and what Borough Council, they're sort of one step ahead of all of us in this, because what they're saying is that, and English Heritage is saying that in granting consent for the demolition, we want you to set some principles, some design principles, so that whoever owns it, whoever makes the decision at the end of the day, has got some principles to stick with.
Ian.
Thanks, Karen. All sounds good, and in terms of there's clearly a developing partnership and a relationship with planning and English Heritage. The ideas, the choices, the timescales at the end of the day are going to come down to commerciality, yields, value, returns. So I think, so that we understand this process moving forward, is there a willingness to go open book on those sorts of issues, so that we're tracking yields, we're tracking returns, we're tracking viability as those options develop? Because there are risks with sites like this, that you get to an issue and English Heritage are saying to Ian, you must insist on this. Down the line, it's residential and there's no affordable housing, or the car parking requirements change. So I think in the spirit of partnership, that going open book and understanding how that develops, so that we know in terms of adopting principles, that we understand what those principles mean down the line in terms of, are we closing off options? What's the market like now? How will that play out? And I think it's the other side of the picture that no one's talked about yet, is that's what's going to drive timescales and decisions.
Okay, there's two there. At the moment there's no book to open,
right.
Simply because this is about demolition.
Yeah.
We have shared with the Borough Council certainly some confidential information about the costings of things, and some of it will remain confidential in that sense. The costings of doing up the French Gothic building, for example. I think it is true, you're absolutely right. One of the drivers here will be the market and the yields and so on. If it's not viable, it's not
absolutely.
If in circumstances where we are then applying for something later on, which does not comply with policy, you mentioned affordable housing, for example, and it's quite common nowadays to have an open book approach. That if you're applying for something that does not comply with policy, and affordable housing is always the one that people talk about, then we as the applicant, if we were representing the applicant, would have to open our book and explain why we could not provide the full rate of affordable housing. So yes is the answer to your question, just tempered slightly by there will be a lot of commercial confidentiality to certain things. So yes, you open a book and you open a part of the book, that tells the story, but there'll be parts of the book that remain closed as well for commercial confidentiality reasons.
Pat?
Yeah, thank you. There's two on building 4. There's two reasons why large retailers find it hard to come to Haverhill. One is the size of the units, and two is the rent that they pay. Are you going to sort of let them have large units if that's possible, and in building 4? And also, are you going to charge them the sort of going rate of the rents that's in Haverhill High Street? Because the going rate of the rents in Haverhill High Street is quite large, and you know, for our size town really. And I just wonder if you are going to do that, or if Mr. Gertling is going to do that.
Okay, there's a number of questions in there, but there is another reason why certain retailers don't have Haverhill at the top of their list, and that's because of the demographic and the catchment area, the number of people that it can grab for retail. And it's important not to forget that. Now that changes through time, so as retailers deal with some of the other target towns, they then come to look at other towns. You look at any of the retailers like Tesco's. It wasn't long ago when they didn't have Tesco Express, it was just big Tesco stores, so things change. But we do have to recognise that Haverhill is not at the top of the list of many retailers to come to, simply because of the demographic and the number of the catchment area for shoppers. The other issue that we mustn't forget in this particular case is that you've been around the site, as I know you have. It's not a large space. Remember, this is a listed building, and we are being told by English Heritage that it's got to stay in its close to its form as it is at the moment. Otherwise, we may as well just demolish it, and no one's proposing that, no one's suggested it. The form of that building is that it's a North Light factory. That's the history of it. That's the history you're trying to retain. The roof is held up by an awful lot of cast iron stanchions through the site, which no retailer would take that space because of that. If all of those stanchions stayed, you'd have to do an awful lot of work to take all of those stanchions out. You'd probably have to replace the roof and start again to create that open space. So what is more likely in that building is that it will be broken up into smaller spaces between the stanchions. So to have a large retailer in there, I think, and still retain the importance of the history of that building, is probably unlikely. So you're looking for uses that can gather into smaller spaces that you can create within that building for. Now that takes you into a different kind of retailer. It kind of takes you into a different kind of opportunity. So, I mean, I mentioned that it's purely plucked out of the air, but it's the sort of thing that you can imagine people in Haverhill wanting to make a decision to go to sit in a coffee shop within a space where there's other activity as well, and they've maybe looked at the museum. There's a museum there, and Caroline they're looking at Caroline. You can kind of feel that there's an opportunity within that, in a way that you don't feel there's an opportunity for a big retailer to come in and just wipe out all of the stanchions, put a completely different roof on the top. So it's kind of, I think we're feeling there's a kind of that sort of use rather than a large-scale retailer. In terms of the rent, I can't stand here today and say what Mr. Gertling has in mind in terms of the rent. I imagine that it will be market rent, and market rent is relates to if you put your prices too high, you haven't got a market. So you've got to identify a rent that attracts people.
Yeah, can I just come back on that? Because there is a few empty shops in Haverhill, not that many, because compared with other towns we haven't got a great amount of empty shops, lucky enough. But as I say, that it's still, the reason why I found talking to a lot of shopkeepers have actually moved out or gone out and gone online is because of the very high rent that's being charged. So you've got to bear that in mind in the town that we've got at the moment when it comes to small businesses.
I completely agree with that. If we're serious about trying to find a use for that building that is long-term sustainable, you've got to get that balance right.
Marianne.
Thank you, Jane. I'm sitting here and just looking at that picture. It's been up there too long, that's why I'm asking. But, so I've got the Gothic, I've got the Caroline. The two narrow ones, obviously I'm no architect, would they go? They're not going to go, are they? But there'd be a gap near the small building on the right.
Running up
Sorry,
here.
I'm being very stupid.
Okay.
There, yeah.
Yeah,
They,
they're
but
not
there'd
going.
be a gap in the middle, a space to go through.
Here?
Go down a bit more.
Here?
There, yeah.
Yes, yes,
That would
yes,
be, that would
yeah.
something be demolished.
If
for
I
that,
show
wouldn't it?
you...
Sorry.
Shall I show you in the next one? Sorry, yeah, thanks. Do you see the...
Oh yeah, I saw that. Oh,
yeah.
that's where
So
that
that's,
right, okay.
that's popping through. Can you see where the cursor
Yeah.
is there? It's just popping through there and then running along
Right.
through. Yeah.
Okay, and then my second question was, where were you proposing? I know it's only proposing because we're not sure, but if it was retail, it would be behind there where the white buildings are.
Here. Or...
It'd be behind, in that area there where I'm looking at now, where the L shape is. That would be the retail. I know it's not even how they could all go.
Well, as Mike was saying, it would need to be determined where
Yeah,
where it's best to
but
retail.
if
But potentially, if you've got a flow of people through
It'd be
here,
behind.
then you would probably access from the south side of Building 4 into the plan that way. And on the other example was showed quite well, you'd have potentially access to the lower ground level of that one, and then you'd have effectively a street, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all know the high street's changing, and who knows the future of where it's going. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, as we're future gazing, you did mention a remote possibility of Mr. Gertine selling. If he did, would a purchaser have to abide by the design principles that we're discussing?
Yeah, he is nodding there.
Essentially, this design principle, if the application to demolish these buildings is approved by the Borough Council, then this design principle will be tied down within the planning consent and conditioned within the planning consent. So it goes with the site and not with Gertine or any other owner.
Okay, yes, Tony, sorry.
Okay, so the elephant in the room is what happens if you don't get the planning permission to knock down building 8? What does that do to the plans? Is that
We've got a problem.
showstopper? Yeah.
The
Does nothing
problem.
happen, or have you got...
Yeah, the problem, I'm afraid, is that the Gothic, French Gothic building will remain as it is in some office use. There will be continued problems of repair on Building 8 and Building 4 in particular, and on all the other buildings that are of no quality whatsoever, but they're still listed buildings because they're on a site of a listed building. And there comes a point where they will... Gertines have always looked after their buildings. I mean, let's be honest about that and fair about that. But they've looked after them to a level. Now, it's a business, and the business can only continue to put money into that instead of its investment for the future for a period of time. I would worry quite strongly. I would worry, and I'm not part of Gertine, but I would worry that those buildings would start to fall into disrepair. And you wouldn't get the public benefit that we're talking about, which would be a great shame.
That's a question that needed to be asked.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. You are very welcome to stay with us should you wish to for the rest of the meeting, but I understand if you wish to keep it. Very long agenda, you're right. Okay. Right, if I can move on to item 5, please, which is the Haverhill Town Centre update. Ian and Tim, you're presenting this for us, please.
Well, I think everybody in this room has seen various plans for Haverhill Town Centre. Indeed, it's been going on since the old king died, I seem to think. But what's been decided now is we'll take a fresh look at the whole thing, not considering just the high street, but the town as a whole and how it might be developed to accommodate the future needs of the growing population of Haverhill. So, as a starter, we've invited tenders from potential suppliers to come up with a master plan for the town centre, which will eventually form part of the master plan for Haverhill and district. The deadline for those tenders is Friday, the 12th of December, this week, and 3 suppliers, all with an excellent track record, have provided us with assurance that they will be bidding for the work. So we've got some competition. The consultants will be appointed in the week commencing the 22nd of December, and an inception meeting with the consultants will take place early in the new year. So it's got quite a bit of momentum, this project, as you're gathering. So until we've got some idea of what they're thinking about, that's where we are at the moment in the master planning process. We're bringing in outside consultants, and we should be in a position to start talking about what they're doing by early new year. In the meantime, the master planning core group of One Haverhill continues to plan selection of projects to improve the town centre and engage the community, and project plans for these are being developed. So, for example, we've got the Spring Clean project, which is being run by the Town Council, Roger Andre and Colin Poole, which will be a quick win environmental improvement following previous community workshops and walkabouts. Then our historic Haverhill, what's left of it, or what was there before was all knocked about. We're doing a leaflet to engender pride in Haverhill and its achievements to date. And I think the sort of thing we were discussing just now about Gertine's Mill is trying to preserve something of the history which is still left in this town, and there isn't a lot. Empty shop window decoration. I know we haven't got that many empty shop windows, but it would help to give some idea of the look of the shop windows, and engage with landlords while utilising the space to promote the Haverhill master plan process. So giving the public an idea of where we're going as the plans develop. So that's where we are on the Haverhill master planning process, and I'll do my best to answer any questions, although I'm just a small cog in the wheel.
Okay, Maureen.
Yes, it also, I'm really thinking positive about this. However, what I would like to know, to date, what's the costing so far on having people in, the consultants, etc.?
I can't tell you yet. The tenders are out. We haven't got them answered.
You haven't got?
No.
Right, okay. But, okay. I'm sure somebody from the borough can tell us, and I think we've discussed it before, how much money has been set aside to deal with the master plan?
What I can say is that the planning services at the Borough Council has set money aside. I think I've set something like £25,000 or £30,000 set aside from planning budgets for this. But it is important to emphasise that this is a project being run by One Haverhill, and there are a number of other partners that are contributing to this work. So
Okay.
It's not just purely Borough Council money.
That's helpful, thank you.
Thanks. This has changed from just a town centre master plan to a whole of the town master.
No, it is about the town, but considering the whole town. Yeah, go on, Ian. You.
It is purely for the town centre. Some members will recall in Haverhill Vision 2031, we set out a policy within that and a chapter in that said Haverhill Town Centre, too complex, too difficult, too important to address in the whole Haverhill vision. We'll get onto it at a later date for a town centre master plan. The later date is now, and we're kicking off that process purely for the area that's defined within the vision document, and I've got a plan here that illustrates that today, but
That's
focusing on
yeah,
the town centre.
that was exactly my question. Thank you, Ian.
Okay.
May I just?
Yes, of course.
you're going to think I'm absolutely obsessed with pedestrianisation. I probably am, actually.
We all are.
But as part of the consultation on the master plan generally, is pedestrianisation an item on the agenda?
And that's really up to the consultants what they come back to us with.
No, I'm talking about us.
Us?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, are we saying to whoever is going to tender for this that pedestrianisation's got to be part of the consideration?
I don't think we've fettered the tenders with those sorts of things. But
If I can respond to that, what we've said in the brief to the consultants is that they will have to consider, and I haven't got again the brief here, but from memory, they will have to consider opportunities for development, stroke redevelopment, to address the future needs of Haverhill within the town centre, and they will have to give careful consideration to access, movement, and what we term the public realm, i.e. all the streets and all the spaces, opportunities, future uses, how that might be addressed. So we haven't said pedestrianisation, we've just said open, consider the streets. That's not just High Street, it's all the streets and alleyways and routes within the town centre, and come up with a strategy for how people can move around easily, safely, in attractive spaces around that town centre.
Oh, well, I'll say no more today, but I've got major concerns about that. Our High Street is pedestrianised currently, as you know, and it is abused. And the police are doing the best job they possibly can to improve that. But if these consultants come back and say, well, we don't support pedestrianisations, we want two-way traffic, you're going to have anarchy on your hands, I think.
So, if I can, I mean, part of the consultant's brief will be to do the consultation and engage with people, so that will inform part of their answer. I think I've always been clear as well that it's certainly in my mind that the aspiration for pedestrianisation, or it's certainly its achievability, is only resolved when you start to look at the land beyond that. So that's why the master plan, I think, will help in that. I'm very clear, the consultants will come in, they'll pick up the strong desire, and they will be addressing it. The fact that we've written the brief to us not to direct them too far, they will pick that up very, very clearly, and they will address that issue. I think the final point, I mean, I'm hoping that the brief has been agreed by all of the main funding partners in this exercise, so I mean, I think that brief's been already signed off.
Yeah, on behalf of the Town Council, we fully, strongly want pedestrianisation in the High Street from 10 till 4. Also, it says in the Haverhill Master Plan that there should be pedestrianisation, so surely the brief should be there to if they do look at the Haverhill Master Plan, which I think they should do, because it can go into the town centre. But the brief in there says pedestrianisation, so surely they should take that in consideration.
The consultants, the brief sets out what the consultants should have mind to, and that includes the Haverhill Vision 2031, naturally, because that's the policy driver for this master plan. And I can assure you that we will ensure that all options are considered. The process will be consulting on options for the town centre, whatever that use is, buildings, uses, the opportunities are, before formulating a draft master plan that will again be subject to consultation. So there's ample opportunity for engagement of all parties through that process to formulate and shape what that final master plan is.
So it's just on the point that I raised, on the point that I raised, if I may, Chair. Can you tell me then, and you've given an indication of other people going to put resources in, can you tell me who's going to have the final confirmation on what we're going to accept? Is that going to be One Haverhill, because those people are involved in resourcing?
The appointment is being made by One Haverhill. They are the organisation, the body that is commissioning as such the consultants to do the work. Ultimately, the intention is that the Town Centre Master Plan will be adopted by the Borough Council as the planning authority, in order that when we consider future applications, Gertines, any other sites that come forward, that master plan, Centre Master Plan, is what's known as a material consideration in the determination of those plan applications. So it has some weight, but it's essentially the same as a developer preparing a master plan for a greenfield site. They prepare it, council adopts it. One Haverhill prepares, it takes responsibility for the preparation of the town centre master plan, but ultimately it will be adopted by the borough council.
I think this just confirms to me that One Haverhill should be open to anyone to attend, residents in Haverhill. I'm saying no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Was it the borough that drew up the brief that was given to the consultants is the first question. Will the consultants who are appointed use previous intelligence that's been gathered? How long will they take to do the work? Is there a length of time attached to the brief for this contract? Because, there's been an awful lot of talking around the High Street and its development, and quite frankly, precious little has yet to happen. So I just wonder if we can have some sort of timeline on this, really.
In terms of the brief and drawing it up, officers at the Borough Council did a lot of pulling together, but it was agreed by the One Haverhill Town Centre Core Group, which is has got the Town Council on, amongst others. In terms of previous intelligence, we have already indicated and pointed the consultants to retail appraisals and stuff that's already on the council's website, and all the other previous reports and information that have been gathered will be made available to the consultants so that they can digest and pick the bones out of all of it as such. In terms of a timeline, assuming that the appointment timetable that Councillor Marks referred to earlier is adhered to and that we appoint next week, we've indicated to the consultants in the brief that we would expect to have the final master plan completed and all consultation towards the end of the summer, early autumn next year.
And can I also ask, is the decision to appoint going to be based on price or quality?
Dare I say both?
No. Because you can't.
Through the procurement process and the framework process that we have, there is a scoring approach on there, and it is a bit of both. It is about the quality of the consultants, but also in terms of the price for that as well. So it will be a mixture of but it is set out in a framework that in a scoring approach. So each is sort of marked as such equally and given equal consideration.
If I can just come back, Chair, what concerns me about that is that the scoring matrix, how much input is there going to be to that from professional planners from a quality perspective? Because if, say, for example, Maureen and I were having a conversation about what we thought was a quality pitch, we'd probably have extremely different views on what we both think is quality. So I want to understand how we know that we're going to get the best bang for our buck in this process.
And what I can say is that in selecting the organisations that we went out to tender to originally was done on the ability to do this and a track record of doing this type of work in town centre master plans. And what we've got there I hope in terms of the submissions that we will receive, are some very good practices.
Tony.
As I say, as part of the same master plan scheme, there's going to be, or can't emphasise this enough, there's going to be a big public engagement exercise all around the town centre master plan next summer, sort of urge everyone to get their partners and everyone that they know involved to get their point of view put in at this early stage, so that you can actually shape, if they want pedestrianisation, don't want pedestrianisation, if they've got any view on it whatsoever, to get involved and to get their words heard.
Thank you.
So can I just, I just have this desire just to remind members where this started. As part of the Vision 2031, it is, Haverhill was in there to have a master plan at some point in the future because of the challenges around pedestrianisation, because of the borough's desire to not do, planners to go off and do what planners do and produce a master plan at some point in the future. To actually say to One Haverhill and the partnership that we've got in Haverhill, and use One Haverhill as that vehicle, actually take this on, is actually a significant departure in terms of working and developing these master plans. And yes, I appreciate there are issues about One Haverhill and public access to the meetings, and the fact that other partners are contributing, and that means that there are issues about professional officers' advice. All of the goodness is still kept in terms of that professional officer advice. There is a working party. All of the main parties are represented. The funding and the commitment is being shared, and it will happen quicker. And the engagement, as Tony said, is absolutely forefront to that process.
Okay, well that leads us nicely on to the next point actually, because it's an update from One Haverhill, so it does give us an opportunity to actually sort of have some influence with them. So if I can hand this over to Tim, as Alaric Pugh and Sarah have had to send their apologies. Sarah's ill and Alaric was unable to be here, so Tim's going to give us the report. Thank you, Tim.
Well, the last meeting of One Haverhill took place on the 16th of September, as some of you may know. Basically, the things which really came to the fore at that time was the One Haverhill grant scheme and Haverhill Town Council request for community events funding, and the board's agreement agreed to allocate £25,000 to this year's One Haverhill small grant scheme and £25,000 for larger one-off spends. There's since been a meeting of the grants panel, and a number of grants of under £2,500 have been made, which do not have to go back to the main board for approval, but there are some which are over £2,500 and they are to go back to the board for ratification. The other good thing that's happening in Haverhill is the apprenticeship scheme here. I think we've got something over 50 apprentices now, and that's really affecting the number of youths who are in the unemployment situation. I think at one time we were in a very poor state in Haverhill, and this is still growing, and I'm very pleased that it is growing, and that we will end up with people who don't necessarily want to go to university, but will end up with a career which is well worth it and equally well paid, I might add, as some graduates. You only have to be a plumber today to know that.
When you can get one.
Exactly.
Name your price, I'll pop round. There's been a suggestion that the corn exchange be looked at, and at the moment that the paper which is produced is in for consideration. We've also filming of the One Haverhill Public Forum, which took place on the 22nd of October. That was done. Also, the question about the town twinning signs on the town boundary signs. that has been agreed and will be paid for, I understand, by Haverhill Town Council. There'll be a single strap underneath the main thing which says twin with blah blah blah. Alright? So that's that done. As you know, we've got a PCSO in the High Street which is partly funded by the Town Council, and I think it is having a salutary effect. I think in the last 3 months they've issued over 500 tickets, which says that people aren't learning very quickly, but nevertheless that is going to carry on, and that's the only way we can handle it.
The Town Council are not putting any money into this.
I thought they were. Well, I misunderstood them.
It's the county council.
The County Council.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Ladies.
And lady, yes. Update on Haverhill Master Plan. We've already talked about that. And I think that really is about all the matters of great import which have been discussed at One Haverhill in recent times. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Tim? You've got a floor, Tim.
I have.
Okay, if we can move on to item 7, please, which is the report HAB SE 14001, which is for Strasbourg Square, which is going to be presented to us by Damien.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Strasbourg Square is as you know, is a 1960s shopping precinct on the Chalkston estate. The Borough Council is responsible for the management and maintenance of the square, which contains 6 trees. The trees are mature, they've caused extensive damage to the surface, and they are now in a state of decline, the trees themselves, they're over mature. The Borough Council has undertaken regular inspections of the area and on a number of occasions has carried out ad hoc repairs. These ad hoc repairs have left a mosaic of patches on the surface, which isn't particularly attractive. Simply root pruning and then relaying a surface is not deemed viable because of the tree species and their maturity and the fear of destabilising them. The Borough Council has earmarked a budget for the repairs of the square for the current financial year. We came up with an initial proposal, and this is included as Appendix 3. We then received feedback, which is summarised in Appendix 2, and having considered that feedback, we then amended our plan and have submitted that for consideration this evening as Appendix 1. The recommendation is that members consider this proposal, provide us with the feedback, prior to us then going out on some formal consultation, which include meeting for our property services team who let the shops there with the shop owners, with Haverhill Housing and the residents above, and also displaying a plan in the local shops. And then, as I say, subject to the majority of respondents to the consultation being in favour of it, we would look to progress this early in the new year. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Would it be possible to get the trees cut down as soon as possible? Because if things get delayed through inclement weather over the winter, and it ends up going back into the bird nesting season, the whole project could be delayed until late in the year. So it'd be really good if we could get the trees down ASP. They've got to come down at some stage, so let's get them down as quick as possible. Second point, looking at the access to the children's playground. It's up some steps at the back of the square. What about the, is there any for disabled children and parents to get up there? Have you got provision for that? And the third thing is, around some of the trees, you've got the actual benches built into the trees. You'll obviously be losing those benches when the trees come down. You've got some benches marked at the back, but they in no way replace what's there at the moment. Would it be possible to get some more benches in the scheme so people can sit outside and enjoy the square? Yeah, at least we've got to have as many benches as we're getting rid of. And that's it. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that?
Yes, certainly. With regards to the tree removal, you're quite right. We would certainly hope to get the trees out prior to the bird nesting season, so that doesn't delay that work. And as I say, that is subject to the consultation being favourable, which I think from the consultation that's already been done, anecdotal evidence there is support for that. In terms of the access to the play area, yes, on the plan here it does show steps leading into the square. Those steps don't currently exist, and there is a climb of at least nearly 1.5 metres there. There is an alternative access still to the play area, which is DDA compliant and pram friendly on the other side, so that there would still be that facility. I think if we look at ramping that, we then start nibbling away either into the square or into the play area, so there's just that balance to it.
As long as people's out, that's what I'm worried about, yes. Yeah.
And so your third point was about the bench seating.
Yeah.
Yes, the initial one didn't have any additional seating in. We have now included 2, and the proposal would be that they would be the new Haverhill range. In terms of salvaging the bench seating that's there, certainly the ones that get down at this end aren't really salvageable.
No, I understand that, yeah.
And as I say, if that's what comes back at us through the consultation process, then yes, I'm happy to consider that, or to consider similar in the play area.
Yeah. So there should be as many seats as there are now, at least, I think, in my opinion.
Thank you. It's really funny because when I was reading this, I mean, you can't help but think how strange it is that we haven't got Councillor Cox sitting here and feeding into these discussions. Really, it just seems totally odd. On the Appendix B, it's not one track, and in the first paragraph, it's on track. And I just wondered how many of the local residents, as could be found, were found, because that sort of gives me a bit of an idea of the number of people that made these comments. I absolutely agree about the tarmac comment, because what was worrying me was if we used a colour, it would end up looking actually worse than it started, because it's very difficult to match colours, and that would really look awful. In the bit about number 9, about the possibility of having tables and chairs, I'm pleased to see that that would actually have to be regulated under licence, because I was obviously a bit concerned about things like clearing litter and that sort of thing, really. There's also under 16, the council have not alleged that proving seating is a magnet for crime stroke ASB. I think it should be providing. I remember that when we were discussing Jubilee Plaza a long time ago, there were some concerns about antisocial behaviour being attracted to seating, so I'm very pleased to see that we're not using that argument again. But I mean, if we could have a little bit more understanding about this survey, are we going to just repeat this, or is the borough consultation going to be different in any way?
No, I mean sorry, answer. If I answer in reverse, if that's okay. So in terms of the borough consultation, as I say, it will be via our property services who actually let the shops. So they will have a face-to-face with the shop owners. So they'll take care of that aspect. In terms of the tenants that surround the block, then yes, we will liaise with Haverhill and go through that in an appropriate way. And in terms of the users of the community hall, we will make sure that they are supplied with a copy of the plan that they're more than happy to display in their hall, and we will take feedback from that. As I say, I I hope that it will be as quick as we can do it physically, because of the bird nesting season and the wish to try and resolve the issue there, which is an unsightly state at the moment with all the patching that's gone on there over the time.
Sorry, if I could just comment, there's also the open road facility, which is on the first floor. I don't know if they were spoken to, as well as the free shops.
Yeah. But as I say, I can't really comment upon the consultation that has taken place. Obviously, this came as feedback from a third party. Obviously, a lot of those comments are quite valid, and that's why we felt the need to make the amendment. We will be going out, and as I say, we will be taking any further feedback that comes back. There was a mention there about the licensing aspect of the Chipley, I think it is, taking on a facility, an outdoor facility, and as I say, yes, that would be governed by licensing. I'm sure that littering and having a litter being placed close by would all be part of that, and they would then take responsibility for the litter that they're creating.
But if there's going to be benches, couldn't people use the benches?
Possibly if there's an alfresco seating outside, then that area to the front of the shopping area could happen. But presumably that would be for their clients, and we'd need to know what the licensing aspect is first, I think.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I really like this. But when I was on the Borough Council from 1999 to 2007, they come up with 2 or 3 redesigns for this square, so I really hope this is carried out. You know, we've been waiting a long time because it is sort of really down the area. My big worry when it comes to seating though is I'd like it to be within range of the CCTV camera, which is in the park. And bearing in mind we have got seating in the park as well already, so that sort of can take the place of that. And I don't want the seating to be too near, you know, permanent seating, too near the residential as well. I wouldn't like that for that. You know, it's a lovely idea of, you know, having the seating outside the shops. I think it's a really good idea. Also, the last point really is the trees. I'm a little bit worried, and it's good that you've done away with the, what is it, the pine tree. That's really good you've done away with that, because they can create a real big mess, and there's a slip hazard as well. As I say, with these trees, the only sort of concern I've got a little bit is how tall they grow, because the CCTV camera points direction over towards the community centre and the roofing of it, because I don't think we've had much problem now to what we used to have. We used to have people climb on the roof. So I'm just a bit worried whether that's going to grow too tall for the camera to focus, because at the moment the tree that's there is too tall and it can't focus over the top of the community centre. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the CCTV, yes, we are very much aware of where that's stationed, and hopefully the paths themselves will provide those clear lines of sight. The trees that we're now proposing to plant are more ornamental birch. They are the Jack Montii ones with the very clear white trunks. So then they're not going to be anywhere near the size that the current trees are. And again, it's the case of getting that balance between what looks acceptable aesthetically and the practical side, and I'm hopeful that this plan does reflect that.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, just for clarity, the little consultation that's there was done by a Hay resident, Mr. John Burns. Basically what happened, he heard that this was going on, see the plans, took it on his own back to go around and engage with, you know, local residents, local businesses, police, different people on the estate. So, you know, he must be commended for that, and the amount of time that he put into getting the feedback. So it isn't a borough consultation, that's obviously coming on after this. It's just residents that actually took the time. and put this together. So thanks for including this in there, Damien.
I wasn't sure whether to mention names. So.
No, well, yeah, he's here and he's...
Adam.
Well, kind of on that subject, a little, I suppose. I think it's really good that actually Mr. Burns has helped us out by doing some of this preliminary work, so at least we've got a feel for what's going on. But kind of leading off Anne's points about it being unclear about how many people were actually spoken to. I'm just looking at the recommendations here, and I just have a couple of questions about the recommendations. One is, I'm not clear whether the working party is being asked to approve the spend of the project going ahead based on recommendation 2, or that's just going to happen should the majority of respondents be favourable. And the other question that I had related to that is, do we have a kind of cut-off above which we'd expect the number of respondents to be? I'm just wondering if we could have a really low number of respondents in consultation, and therefore we could be taking a majority out of 2 over 1 or something like that. So just what the mechanism is around that.
I think the mechanism would be, in terms of the retail downstairs, we know there are 3 shops, so we would expect a response from all 3 of those. We know the number of properties above. I would think at least 50% return. That would be quite high for a consultation of this nature. And the community centre, I mean, the plan will be there. I would say if we could get that up for a 2 to 3 week period, and whatever the throughput of traffic through that community centre. So, yeah, that would seem reasonable to me.
I mean, if I make I absolutely don't want to delay the project, because I think it, like Pat says, it's been a long time talked about, so it's good to see it finally coming to fruition and the improvements made. But I'm still unclear whether we're saying at this meeting we're approving the go ahead and spend irrelevant of the number of respondents to that consultation.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of bringing it to this group was to receive feedback from this group. As I say, it is a project which has been earmarked by the borough. It is something that it wants to pursue next year. So, the recommendation as it reads is, we want your feedback, and subject to it being positive, we'll get on with the job.
Yeah.
Can I just add to this, as one of the ward members, I did give you some of my feedback, Damien, but there's just a couple of points. There's a lot of groups that use the community centre, but is there a way of actually making sure that all the residents would be aware that you're putting something in the community centre for them to see? Because it's a big estate there, and we need to make sure that they are aware. Is it something that can just go into one of the local papers or something? Is it as simple as that? And the other point I made to you, I know it's not included in here, but I think it's something that maybe needs to be considered for the future. We own the lighting in that square, and we need to make sure that that is well maintained, because it has been an issue in the past with that. I know the county do the maintenance for you, but the lighting is owned by the borough, and I had that checked out. So it is something that we would need to make sure. I know it's not included in your budget for this time round, but that we make sure that it is well maintained and kept up to standard, because we do have problems sometimes with that lighting. But yes, that's something to tell you.
Yeah. On that very subject, so I was looking at this today, and there's a light on that corner as you go up the stairs by the pub, and I thought it was a county light, but obviously
it's not. It's a borough light.
Yeah.
Well, some of them are, and some of them aren't, Tony. So you'd have to point out which one it is.
It hasn't got a number on it.
Then it's probably a borough.
It's very dim.
Referring to is
them steps. It is it? It's county, right? Okay, I'll chase it myself then.
Yeah.
And we are following up on that.
Yeah, it's very dim, and them steps there is quite steep. Just worried that
It's often the one that gets damaged, but there are the others in the square belong to the borough, and I just asked that we make sure that they're kept well into maintenance, if you like, really, sort of like for that aspect, and maybe think about using some future proofing for LED lighting or something anything comes forward in the future for that. Do you want to go to that, Mark?
Yeah, just to say that we are in conversation with the county council at the moment. We're just doing that very thing.
Good.
In terms of looking at the lights that the borough owns across the borough.
Excellent.
And looking to invest in upgrading into LED.
Lovely.
In order to cover the energy and maintenance.
How much are you receiving?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Maureen.
Yeah, as I say, I think all of us support the recommendations, and I'd like to support the recommendations and the spend. However, we've still got that absolutely eyesore of a building that really is detrimental to the whole thing. It's really going to spoil it. Now, because we've got senior people here that understand planning, etc., what can we do to insist that it's made good or it's demolished or compulsory purchase? Am I sort of rambling on? Can we do any of those three things?
You're talking about the Vixen.
The Vixen, yeah.
I don't know, but I'll go and find out. Definitely go and find out more.
I do believe
something you can bring back for another working group then?
Well, hopefully before
then. I do believe that they were approached to make it safe, because I think youngsters were getting in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, spending this type of money, I think is going to make a major improvement to the area. I used to live on the Chalkstone, so I'm very supportive. However, something's got to be done about that. It's just doing nothing and going, well, it's going to rack and ruin, basically.
We'll go and have a look and I'll get back to you.
It was going to be an undertaker's, if you remember, so I don't know who quite owns it really.
The planning
It is an undertaker's. Where
it's still current.
Oh, right, okay.
I do have two recommendations sitting, or one and two recommendations sitting here on the table, which I need a proposer and a seconder for. Please.
I can propose 1 and 2.
Second.
Okay. Duly passed. Thank you. Okay, right, if I can move you on to item 8, and I'm sorry the meetings are getting rather long, so we have a long agenda. So item 8, the maintenance schedule for existing Haverhill range of street furniture. And again, Damien, you've got the short story on this tonight.
Yes, certainly. Well, we've had a look at all the street seating within the town centre, and we've identified that there are 40 bench seats, 20 of which are of the bespoke Haverhill range, whilst the structure of the bespoke benches seems to be standing up well. The paint on the galvanised metal sections is evidently wearing off. Some of the woodwork is also showing decorative deterioration. We are adopting a rolling programme of bench seat restoration, and our aim will be to renovate approximately a fifth of the town's benches on an annual basis, and that will be a cyclical regime that we then adopt. The maintenance will involve removing the existing paint from the galvanised sections of the bespoke benches and then leaving them as a bare galvanised state, replacing renovating the wooden slats and recoating with a wood preservative. And over time we will then seek to replace the non-Haverhill range benches that we've got out there with the more standardised approach. So that's really the update on the bench seating. I am aware that there is a broken tree guard outside the opticians, which requires repair, and we will action repairs to that quickly. I've also been asked just to provide an update on the play area programme. So this year we are scheduled to rejuvenate the Quendon Place play area and the Haverhill recreation play area. They're both in this year's capital programme. Now, works on those have been delayed slightly by the contractors and their overruns on other jobs. I am now hopeful that they will start those two projects early in the new year so that we're up and ready with those ones for spring. We are also planning next year's programme, which will now include Arlington Walk in Haverhill as well. As I say, we have this 15-year programme. Arlington Walk is now amongst one of the worst that we've got, and that's really why we're targeting funding there. And there's been mention of the entrance signs already. I know this was an action from the last meeting, which was to remove the damaged sign by outside Sainsbury's, which we've done, and we are now looking to replace a couple of the others. So if there are any questions on that.
Thank you for that report. It's very positive, but you won't be surprised when I question the recreation ground refurbishment, because you personally told me that it was going to commence after the children's summer holidays. You said we can't do it before, let the kids have their holidays and we will start it. So you're now telling me that contractors, and this is an excuse we get from the Borough and Suffolk County Council when we ring up about things, they've got trouble with contractors. Well, I would suggest if we haven't got enough, we get some more, and if the ones that we've got are not performing 100%, we get shot of them. Whatever we want done in Haverhill, I bet you I ring the Borough and the county at least 2 to 3 times a week, where you've promised to do jobs, we've got numbers, reference numbers that are given to us, and we're fobbed off that there's a problem with contractors. There are hundreds of people out of work in this region. Why do we not give the work to somebody that can do it? No, not yet.
That is a fair point. I did attend the Haverhill Town Council and I did provide the plans, and our intention was to have, get on with the project sooner. There have been delays on our side initially in terms of the resource to get that done, and as I say, there has been a later delay associated with the contractors then not being in a position to progress the works when initially they said they were.
We were advised, with all due respect, that the resources was already there, and in fact you had increased it from what it was initially.
Yeah.
So I don't know what budget you're taking it out of or where you're putting it, but the money was there because you were going to start at the end of September, October.
Yeah.
Now you're telling us it's got to come out of next year's. Dip into your reserves and let's get the jobs done.
As I say, with regards to the budget, yes, it has been increased. It was initially just the council capital funding, and we have also now been able to top that up with some additional funding from Section 106 monies. So, the delay has benefited the scheme overall.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Are the chairs worn out by people sitting on them?
No, I think it's more the fact that they are galvanised, and there has been an issue with the paint sticking to the galvanising.
What should be the life of galvanized? 25 years?
That's right, yes.
And they've reached that?
No, these are, they've been put in the last 5-10 years.
Are they substandard?
So, I don't believe so, no. I think it is more just a genuine issue with, as I say, that adhesiveness. And as I say, we have used just the galvanised furniture elsewhere. It's of a similar colour, but it will just also help future maintenance as well. They're not being painted.
Tim?
It's gratifying to note that the railings on the edge of pavements at the entrance to Brookfield Service Road have been replaced. But I would urge the council, it's the county council I presume, to put high curbstones there, otherwise they're going to get run down again in just the same way. High curbstones like they have on Clements Lane near Orchard Close. Nothing will get over those.
We can take that up with our colleagues in highways.
Please.
Thank you. Can I just bring a formality? I'm very sorry. I should have taken a formal vote on item 7, so I do apologise. I don't think there was a will to go against it. If I can just take a formal vote. All of those in favour, please. I'm so keen to rush you all on. Such a long agenda. And could I also, just as another formality, ask, Robert, are you here substituting for Paul McManus? Yes? Robert, are you here to substitute for Paul McManus?
Right.
You are, yes, thank you. Just for the minutes, thank you very much. Sorry about that, I don't normally forget to take a formal vote. Okay, right, item 9, Jubilee Plaza. Okay, this is a verbal update, and again, Damien, yourself and Lizzie. If I could ask Damien to do item A and Lizzie to do item B, please.
Yeah. So item 8 is that we are proposing to install 4 benches around the plaza. I think that request came from this group. They will be in the Haverhill style and they will be backless, which I think is the request. And they will be
That's the last one.
That's the last one.
And share.
It's got a share?
You see that, Derek?
Okay, any questions for Damien on this?
No, I haven't got a question, Chairman, but I'm pleased to see that designated points on there for benches, because when we brought this up, there was a lot of opposition to having any seats out there at all, and I found that rather incredible. Anyway, obviously somebody's thought about it, and that's what there's to be, and I think that's the right move.
Any other comments?
Job done.
Thank you. Right, item B, the update on the potential use of Jubilee Plaza. Lizzie, you've got an update for us.
Yes, thank you very much. Just to inform the committee that my colleague, one of the West Suffolk events officers, will be joining me in Haverhill, probably leading on this project, to have a look at the activities that we are thinking about in the plaza. Just to say, he knows Haverhill quite well anyway, and he's already been in touch with the Town Council on other matters to do with outdoor events. So he's very keen to get involved. I think it's fair to say we'll work with the usual partners who are actually in that square anyway, so we'll start with Abbeycroft Ledger. We will, we think, be canvassing schools and local groups to see if they wish to use that square for anything. And we'll be also looking for partnership sponsorship from probably the eateries and probably the cinema that are also on that square to get some budget to be able to use. So we envisage, I think, a kind of mixed programme of activity, which I know perhaps some of this may have happened before on that square, but just bear with me. So in terms of the kind of mixed activity, probably Abbeycroft will be supplying, doing some kind of activities. It may be something like having a ping pong evening out there and dragging the tables out there. It could be kind of like Tai Chi out in the open, could be that kind of thing. We'd also like to see whether the schools and the community might want to get involved, as previously said. Perhaps looking at what young people might like on that square. We've got an idea that we could put the on-the-spot van, which tours around, which engages with young people. Perhaps a mobile skate park, perhaps a mobile parkour, which is, when they're jumping over things and all the rest of that. And then perhaps some other activity which may be either commercial or a bit unusual for that square. So perhaps things like, if it were possible, a bit of small-scale outdoor cinema. I'm obviously talking about the summer here, I'm not talking about next week. Perhaps perhaps a aerial kind of ballet show, kind of trapeze type thing. Something that's unusual might bring people out of the town over to that square. So something that is a kind of designated kind of spot, so that we go, let's go and see that particular event. And actually, I'm quite keen, and I'm flagging up now. I quite like to see one of those beaches there. I don't know if you've had a beach in Haverhill at all, but I think it might be. Have you seen that when they pour a load of sand and you
Do like a stone market.
Yeah, you have kind of deck chairs and then you sell ice creams and and it's particularly British. It's cold and it's wet. But it's quite fun. It'd be quite nice. So maybe that kind of thing, depending on the kind of budget we have. We'd like to be able to talk to Town Council about possible marketing partnership with them. Colin, if that's all right. I think you've got to badge this up really. Putting kind of random events on doesn't really work. You've got to badge it up. So preliminary thinking is maybe June and July, every Friday evening between 5 and 8, something like that. So there is a kind of set time, and then people will know there will be something going on in that square at that time, and that's much easier to market. And then we'll see how it goes. We're obviously very mindful, of course, that there is a kind of major road at the bottom there, really, speaking of beaches and people kind of coming, so I'm a bit mindful of that, health and safety issues. And yes, right. Also, I mean, we also, you know, we have to think about the sustainability of this. But Tom, who's the events officer, it works all the time kind of commercially as well as part of his events management job. So it might be that if we could build this up, we can get more businesses perhaps to put some money in. And so really that's the kind of plan. So we're going to get going with that in the new year and head for doing something June and July.
Sounds very exciting. Any questions? Yes,
No questions really. I couldn't be more delighted to hear about this, and especially some of your more, shall we say, wacky ideas, which I think are brilliant. It never ceases to upset me every time I go to the Arc, and I walk past the Apex, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the square in front of the Apex, and it really annoys me. You know, I'm very happy for Bury, but it really annoys me because we've got this square in Haverhill and quite frankly nothing happens on it. So I'm absolutely delighted, and I'm really pleased with your plans, and I'm looking forward to this chap coming and working with the town council and bringing something together. And I absolutely agree with you. If we've got it on a defined schedule, then people know, and you know, obviously if you're walking past to the cinema or something, you're going to see it, but it's just really helpful for people to know there's something there that will bring them out. It will help the restaurants, it will help all sorts of things, so I think that's really, really brilliant.
Pat?
Yeah, it's really good about parkour, by the way, because they've been trying to get somewhere in Haverhill for quite some time, and I think that would be used quite often for them. Because there is a little group, or big group actually, in Haverhill that want somewhere to go. So that would be ideal for them.
Obviously, apparently there's some mobile parkour. I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. But anyway, I'm advised that such a thing exists. That is one of the issues, though. If you start supplying stuff, you know, for young people, but there isn't anywhere in Haverhill to do it, you've got to think about the expectation. But if you say it's a one-off event, you know, that's probably what it will have to be. But then it might spur young people on to, I don't know, get some funding to get something themselves. So, you know, so I'm just mindful of the caveat of, you know, the sustainability of this all. And it really, I can't emphasise enough though, you can't put on activities without budgets. You just can't. So that has to be bottomed out before we charge.
Chair, just come back on parkour. I've been sort of trying to raise funds to open a permanent park. So there is some. They have got some funding there, if I'm correct, Ollie, on that.
Perhaps Lizzie, as another thought, maybe you could think about sort of like they do mobile sort of like ice skating rinks, don't they, mini ones, so that you've got a winter event, maybe tie in something like that, so it's not all summer oriented.
Yes.
I know that's probably for next winter, not for this winter, but just as a thought, because there are older, young adults that would enjoy that as well as the children. So I think that would definitely, yeah. I'm still 25 inside. Yes, certainly.
So there's an ice rink that doesn't Market Square. There was one there last Saturday. So
was there? I'm
already
sorry,
happens.
I was away, so I missed it.
Yeah, the town council provides that.
I'm so sorry for that. I usually go to it, but I was away. So
Oh, we missed a chance to do it.
Okay, excellent. Right, all finished on that one? Lovely. Now, item 10, the consideration of a memorial plaque for the late Councillor Gordon Cox. Now, this sort of came up really. Damien, you're going to present this to us, as I understand it?
I was. I mean, I understand that there is a proposal from the town council to possibly buy a clock in the town centre, and obviously I'm mindful of not wanting to duplicate that. So if that's
has that got a schedule to come forward, Maureen?
Yes, I don't know. Colin can probably tell you where we are in near completion, but I think the important thing was we were very mindful of what his children would have found okay. they didn't want to go and see a road in his name or anything like that because they reckoned it would be too distressing. So it was agreed unanimously, not just by the town council but colleagues that knew him and worked with him, that the clock was probably the last thing that he was involved in for the town. And it would be appropriate that we put a plaque up either on the wall beside, I don't think we can put it on the clock, but on the wall besides the plaque, sort of commemorating what he's done for the town, etc. So that in fact is going to happen. Is it nearly finished, Colin?
Chair, the clock should be ready for installation probably somewhere around about March, April time. The main top of the clock has been completed, construction is finished. The main stem needs to be built and the clock faces have been begun. Yes, I think it won't really go on the clock, but there will need to be some sort of interpretation panel next, perhaps on a plinth next to the clock where it is just not really a wall adjacent to it. So I think that would be a good opportunity to highlight the contributions that Councillor Cox made, particularly in terms of his promoting the idea of the clock in the first place. So, it does rather lend itself to that.
So is it physically in his ward? Is it on the right side of the high street?
No, it's in mine. But I don't mind.
No, I just wondered if it was, because it would have been nice if it had been actually on his wall.
But the other thing about it is, I think, when it's all done and all ready, and apparently it's supposed to be quite spectacular, then it would be appropriate that colleagues got together and, you know, said a few words.
Duplicating anything on this one, is there really? Any other comments? No? Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to commend the town council for doing that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Now, item 11, the Chipstone Community Centre. Lizzie, you're going to report on this for us.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the River of Life Church have been in negotiation over the transfer since around about the April, May this year. I think before my time they had previously shown some interest in 2030. But the negotiation started up again at the beginning of this year, and I took over doing that in June. They have been following a guide, the expectations document that St Edmundsbury Borough provided as a kind of framework for community groups to help them go through the process of what they had to do to be able to make the transfer. And then that obviously going through this kind of, as it were, list of things that needed to be done and helps them inform both their thinking and of course their business plan. So they've been working away very hard, considering all the options and what they think they might like to do. Started writing their business plan, and they're starting their consultation with the community next week. So they are sending out a questionnaire to all the residents, I understand, on the Chalkstone estate. They'll obviously be talking to the users, current users. They'll obviously be contacting members and other statutory bodies and Haverhill and the rest of it. And once they have compiled that consultation, they will be able to, I understand them to think that they will have a good draft of their business plan ready by the end of January for consideration. And I would hope that everything would go fairly smoothly after that. Both parties are agreed and we can transfer it by the end of the financial year, so in March 30th. And I'm happy to answer any detailed questions. That was just a quick whiz through, so we're out of time.
Any questions? Yes, sir, Tony.
Yeah, what was the rationale for offloading the community centre? Because I've lived in town for a long time. It doesn't seem to have been marketed. It was very, it was very well used up to a few years ago, and it just seems not to be marketed. The full potential hasn't been exploited. It's a community building in the middle of a big housing estate. I I'm sure with some marketing that the borough could have made good community use of that building. I just can't understand why it was built for a reason.
Yeah.
They get rid of it.
I don't think I can necessarily comment on that because I wasn't part of the borough when all that kind of policy was put through. But what I can tell you is certainly the River of Life are very community orientated, and they've talked to me a lot about the kind of thing they would like to do in that building, how they would like to build the business, how they would like to build the relationships with the community and also with the user groups, and start working with, I've suggested the children's centre do stuff upstairs on the long list. They might like to make talk to them about working together. And also they've talked also about perhaps doing some youth projects and perhaps youth activity as well in that community centre. And I think they are in a sense business orientated. So they because they run certain other projects, don't they, in Haverhill?
So I can remember when it was Haverhill, Carrigan, we used to hive activity, hard push to get.
Back in the 70s, but not since then really, Tony. That's the trouble, it's diminished, you see.
Yeah. And, I was saying it must be a marketing strategy or something like that. Still demand for halls. And
but I don't think this is unique to here, I think it's everywhere.
I know most people arguing over old ground, but
it's such a shame. There used to be weddings and everything.
My reception there.
I think if they run it, and they've clearly got some plans, and they do run it more commercially, that income then goes into the community. So it's about supporting them to create that virtuous circle.
What we don't want to do is to be left.
Oh no, exactly. Exactly.
Tim.
Is the borough going to provide some sort of guiding hand to these relatively novice people running a business at these community centres?
Well,
or is there some sort of safety net?
Yes, there is a safety net. So there's a kind of trustees or management committee who will be made up of a combination, I would imagine, of local people, some representatives, critical friends. I think critical friends are always very good to have on panels. So there will be a kind of overseeing group, and obviously what they put in their business plan is essentially a starting point, isn't it? The idea is they can to develop, and actually I think they are quite business orientated. Actually, I think they're quite good. I think they're quite good at it with some of the things they already do in Haverhill. So I think they're pretty sharp, really. I don't mean sharp, horrible. I mean I think they're quite good.
Okay, Pat.
I think my question has just been answered. I was just going to say, are they management or are they going to be the owners? And I think you sort of said that they're the management trustee type. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, they will manage it and it will be theirs, but there is a committee that will oversee that because, there just has to be for checks and balances, because that asset has to be a community asset. So it's not being handed over to a business as such.
So is it like a friends group then, Lizzie, like the Friends of the Haverhill Library? Is that the sort of thing that you envisage?
No, it's
or is it much more than that?
No, it's much more than that.
Right.
But when the kind of legal documents are sorted out, it still has to operate as a community centre. Right. So that is absolutely set down. It has to operate as a community centre. So it has to be for the community.
Sorry, Chair. So if they sort of decide to give it up because it's not viable, will the Borough Council take ownership again then?
That's a really good question, and I can't answer that at the moment. But there probably would be something in the kind of deeds that would it would revert back to the borough. So
they can't to sell it.
They can't sell it. No, they can't sell it.
We would look to support in whatever way, and if they did say that we just can't do it, we would again look to find another group to take it on. And if we've got to, play a role in that in an intervening period, I'm sure that's what we'd look to do.
Good. Okay. All right. Item 12 is the work programme. Now this is to discuss the future work programme, so we've just worked through the last one, so any ideas to come forward? Maureen?
I don't know whether this is going to be very popular or not, but it's something that, as a councillor in Haverhill, I have a major concern about. I want to know if the borough would either allocate or buy a particular home for the homeless when people become homeless. I know there's facilities in Bury, and I know there's a recent facility in Bury where there's a house with 5 rooms. There has been, got to be careful, but there has been exploitation in Haverhill of people that live in multiple occupancy properties, you know, where sometimes there's no running water, no heating, whatever, and they are paying substantially for what they've got, or the landlord gets the benefit. I'd like to see something in Haverhill that if somebody becomes homeless, there's a process where they've got a short stay opportunity in a house until the different agencies can get involved and support them. We had one recently, some weeks ago. The system is that he was told by the CAB to ring Bury, Cambridge and Ipswich. He telephoned Ipswich and asked if they had a bed. He had no way of getting to Ipswich, either by public transport or by private vehicle, and because he couldn't get there, they put him down as a refusal. I understand he got a bus to Cambridge, but they were full up, but they put him on the list. And there was no way he could get to Bury St Edmunds because there is no direct bus to where the properties are located that take care of homeless people. So it may be a long-term, I'd like it to be a short-term target. I mean, it may be a long-term project, but our population is growing, and if you compare us to Bury, we're not far apart now, and I think we need something in Haverhill to look after that group of vulnerable people. There's, as I said, there's sort of exploitation going on where if you are homeless and have got nowhere to live, there's a particular landlord that's got several properties, and they're unacceptable, totally unacceptable. So, I don't know if you've got any money or you've got a house, you can...
Good question.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
or do you want
yeah,
to
I will. It's a very complex issue, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm working on the homelessness strategy as we speak. If there was a property that came available in Haverhill that was suitable, because the one that's become available in Bury was eminently suitable, and that will be on the books and available at the end of January, then I would certainly absolutely look at it. The homelessness situation is a very complex one. It's not just single young people,
No,
you've also got family situations, and you have to be very careful of the mix of who goes into a building, obviously. We do have B&B, which I'm trying to cut down radically on using, because a lot of that, as you've just mentioned, is in Ipswich, which is no good because there's no support system. You're taking people out of the area where they live, and they've got friends and family and what have you. So I'm working on that. We do have facilities in Haverhill. There are a couple of places, as you know, but they're obviously limited to the amount of accommodation they can offer. We do have beds available in Tayfen House, and there is help available.
That's in Bury.
Yeah, that's in Bury. There is help available for people to get there, but that is obviously managed by Havebury, and there are conditions attached to the acceptance of people who go into Tayfen House. As far as the particular case you mentioned, I am dealing with that at the highest possible level, and as soon as we get information about substandard accommodation, officers go in and inspect that, and they will go back and they will inspect that property until it is up to standard, and they will not leave it alone until it is up to standard, but we rely on good information so that we can pass that on to the officers, who will get down there as soon as possible and deal with it. As far as the level of rents are concerned, the information that I have is that the rents that are being asked for the houses, rooms in the houses that you're referring to, directly relate to the amount of housing benefit that is received by the applicant. And of course those are reasonably high in this town because we are part of the Cambridge sub-region, and people on benefit from a higher level of LHA, and that's not the case in Bury, obviously. So I'm very concerned about what you've just said about the advice that has come out of the CAB, and I will ask my officers to contact them and make sure that they give robust advice, because at the end of the day that didn't sound very practical.
It happened.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that it did, Maureen. So if there was a house, if somebody's got a house that they know of that is possibly an HMO already, which cuts down the cost of obviously changing a big house into rooms that have, and with the fire standards and what have you, then please let me know. But whether that's an issue for HAWP,
I think we need to monitor it. I am really formally asking that instead of people having to go outside of Haverhill, some 20 miles to Bury, some 20 miles to Cambridge, and considerably longer to Ipswich, we should have something on the doorstep. Now, we may not be able to get a house with 5 bedrooms, maybe we can, but I would just like HAWP to be as concerned as we are, and there's a lot of councillors that are concerned about this and been involved in this, as has the police on occasions. We are big enough, I think, and I support Anne. I think she's doing a tremendous job, but if you look at our population and how it's growing, we need something here, and I'd like HAWP to take that on board and monitor it and do what they can to make it happen.
Ian, is this something that we can put through HAWP?
There's no reason why not. As Anne said, it's something that's actively being worked on and updating through HAWP, and HAWP, pressing the flash and going, where is it, is absolutely appropriate.
Okay, so we'll add it to the
what I would like is if a couple of the HAWP committee could work together to see if we can identify somewhere. I'm not able to walk around the town looking at accommodation, but
task and finish group.
yeah, that would be really helpful, I think, and work with Anne on it. Yeah.
Well, we'll have a discussion, see if we can bring a task and finish group, and we'll bring it back to the next meeting to discuss, if that's okay.
Thank you very much.
And I had you down for a question. You wanted to speak?
No, I just wanted to respond to that.
In which case, Pat.
Yeah, can I give I think it's a very good suggestion to Anne. I think it's early next year, Place Court will be closed. We could work with, or HAWP could work with Suffolk County Council to have a place court, because I'm sure that they're not going to knock it down in 5 minutes. I'm sure it'd be standing there just like the courthouse is standing there for quite a few years. So I'm just wondering if that could be investigated.
Yeah.
As far as homelessness is concerned, that'd be ideal.
I'd like to support Councillor Byrne.
Sorry, Robert, I've got Tony first. Sorry, Robert.
Not fully support Maureen on what she's saying there, but not on the same level. But it's the ongoing thing. I don't know if HAWP could get involved with the the dog fouling issue. It just keeps coming up and up and up all throughout the year. Last summer, is there anything, a strategy that we can get to solve the problem or help solve the problem? I know you tried hard, but it doesn't seem to be working. It ruins a lot of green spaces in the town for residents, and it just keeps coming up and up and up, and they just think that the borough's not doing anything about it. I know you are trying hard with it, but it doesn't seem to be working, and it's not down to you, it's down to these people that don't pick up after themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just...
Sorry, Anne, I've got other people
Sorry,
waiting.
I thought you were looking at me.
I just, right, all right?
Yeah,
I'd just like to support Councillor Byrne, but I would also like to add that in Newmarket they can't get enough people who are light enough and willing to ride. Remember that, light enough and willing to ride. Plenty of Englishmen aren't light enough. I'm not looking in any direction.
When I used to ride, the horse had to be 17 hands because I'm generously
When I ride every morning, I have to be 10 stone 7, which is what I am. And every morning I ride.
Okay. Anne, you wanted to come back?
I did. Sorry, universe then. I was just going to ask Tony, he's just brought up the issue of dog fouling. Would that not come under this spring clean project?
It's a whole strategy. It's not the spring clean. It's just about specific projects.
The town council supply the dog bins, or they did in the past.
But wrapped up in knowing anything.
I still think it goes back to having some sort of
training the
order.
residents. Really.
I know exactly. You're right, but we're not obviously we're going wrong somewhere because we ain't getting the message over. So, a lot of people are very good at it. It's the few that aren't. We've got to tackle that.
There's a lot of places now that actually fine for this.
Brilliant.
But
That's what
who's going to police it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
what we need to
difficulty,
do.
Tony, because I look at these everywhere I drive across the country. It's not just that, it's the same as litter thrown from the cars. You see all these signs, but who's policing it? Because you see it happen in front of you and
I'm
what
sure
do you do?
that, there's just off the top of my head, we could get maybe private detectives maybe to come to the borough 3 or 4 times a year, pay them on results, and actually take photos of people doing this. It's not rocket science, and pay them on performance or something like that. 3 or 4 times a year, just to show that we're actually proactively finding people that are actually doing wrong. Because it's ruining green spaces for youngsters. Rugby club, they have to go and pick up before they can have a rugby game. I know it's a minor thing to a lot of people, but when you've got young children and that running around on green spaces in the summer, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. It's not life or death, but it could be.
Well, it can be. Sightless.
It can be. Mark, you wanted to come back?
Well, just to say, I mean, it's obviously incredibly frustrating for everyone concerned, and it only takes literally 1 or 2 irresponsible dog owners to cause quite a problem in a quite discreet area. I think, obviously some of the things we've done in terms of bins and signs and spraying messages on pavements and things like that can go so far to try and address it. And, we'll continue doing that. But I think clearly there's room to kind of continue to work together on it and get the intelligence around where the particular black spots are.
Community watch sort of like episode really, because it's really naming and shaming your neighbours to some degree, Tony, because otherwise how would you know that it goes on?
If people can report stuff to us, they don't have to say who they are or whatever, but if they report, if they've seen something, we will investigate.
The problem is, it's just, I see a guy with X Alsatian doing whatever, and what can you do with information like that, unless people actually know the person's name? They just haven't got no real physical evidence, you've actually got to have someone.
Take a photo on your
Exactly. Something like that, or, some real proactive work. You haven't got to do it very often. You get in the paper prosecution once a year or something like that.
I think, just to reply to that, I think it's very important that if the general public out there do report it, to get the time and the day, because you'll find that the ones that do it walk regular times and regular days, and that is so important that the public out there take note of that.
Name them and shame them, Sorry, Mark, you wanted to come back on
Well, that's a really good point that Pat's made there, because obviously if someone does report that to us, clearly we have limited resources. We can't be on every street corner all the time, but if there is a pattern of someone who's in the place on a regular basis, then we can send our enforcement officer out there to try and nab them in rats, if you like. So, that sort of intelligence is golden.
Okay, I've got Anne waiting.
Yeah, that's okay.
First.
Yeah, I was just thinking if Gary and his chaps are out, that they could possibly make a note of that sort of thing. But people have complained to me that they don't use the dog bins because they're pretty disgusting and they're not emptied enough. So, I think we have to be really on top of the emptying schedule to encourage people to use them, really. And have we got enough of these things, and are they in the right places? You know, that's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, and also the other thing is you see people put them in a carrier bag and chuck them up into trees, which is just dreadful.
It does.
Yeah.
Got it next to my house on a regular basis.
That's because you live there, Tim.
But you don't
You know, it's that sort of thing as well. So that needs to be addressed and sorted out.
So certainly in terms of bin emptying, absolutely, I agree with that. If there's bins that are overflowing, we need to address that.
But again, we should be reporting this to you.
Yeah,
and again, that comes
absolutely.
down to community watch and everything
Absolutely.
else, doesn't it? Really. I've got more.
Just very quickly, I think I got involved with a woman who wrote to the town council about dog fouling on the wreck, and she'd approached a guy with a staff or a mastiff, whatever it was, and she's 81 and he sort of threatened her. This dog was fouling. Now, what she says is that there's not enough signs up on open spaces. If you take where the rugby pitch is, there's probably no sign up there. But people need to know that if they're fined and caught for dog fouling, what the consequences are. When we do the rec, it would be really helpful if you put something up by the kids' play area and a couple, even if they're stuck to the trees, around the outside, because people can be fined. You know, there's a financial penalty if they're caught.
Can we put it next to the trees?
Yes, of course.
Tony, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, it was just on the policy of replacing dog bins. We had a recent thing where someone alerted me to a bin that had been, I think it had been set alight. I chased it to be replaced, and I got an email back to say that it was the borough's policy not to replace vandalised dog loo bins. As I've seen a few burnt dog loo bins around, would it be better to actually get steel or galvanised dog loo bins so they can't be burnt? And
we do. It's the answer to that. Obviously, we can't replace. We've got over 1,000 bins out there that we have to service, so we can't replace them all at once. But you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of plastic ones do get burnt. They get kicked off a post or whatever, and we are progressively, when we do replace bins, move them over to a steel type. The other issue is kids put fireworks in.
If I was told it was the policy not to replace these vandalised bins, I got an email to say I was quite surprised actually.
You have a schedule, don't you, Mark?
Well, when people make a request about bins, we obviously go through. We do have a sort of assessment protocol in terms of whether it's in the right place, whether there's anywhere adjacent. So we do review it. We keep it ongoing. So we're obviously to not do it in the
Okay, well, that's... sorry, Derek, did you want to?
Yeah, I did indicate, yeah.
Sorry, Derek.
On it's something, well, certainly on my 5 villages, it's been a headache for years, dog fouling. We've all got a play area, and, that's where most of it tends to happen. But I think, to be honest, the natives have been educated into clearing up when the dog has a... But getting the bins emptied is something else, because, if the bin's fair way off the road, you've got to get a volunteer to say, yeah, I'll do the bin emptying, somebody in the village. And that's not easy to find somebody who will do that. Certainly as far as the council's concerned, you can't expect the bin lorry to stand on the road and try and ride across the other side of this playing field and that playing field to empty dog bins. We understand that. But to get the bin emptied is a problem. Now we've had a lot of, recently, we've had a lot of people picking it up, getting to the bins, can know where to put it, so the next thing they do is a bit further walk and chuck it in the hedge. Not in the trees, but in the hedge. And that is worse, because if it's left out of the bag, especially in the summertime, 2 or 3 days, and the insects are taking it away. But paper bags And I'm not talking about a few, I'm talking about sometimes dozens of them in the bottom of the hedge, all full of dog excrement, is not funny. And that good volunteer, if you can find him, he's not very happy about going and picking all them up as well.
So we need to confirm what we're going to do with that item. Ian, is that something that we can pick up at HAWP, or is this something that we need to just... I don't think it's. I know there's something for the work programme as such, is it?
No, I think it's just I would ask just to report it through.
Yeah.
And I'll alert people back at back at the office that the issue's been raised.
Thank you.
And ask them to obviously be ready for any.
Can we
Get a bit of mail back.
the frequency of emptying those bins?
Yeah.
How frequently are they emptied? There's a lot of dogs in Haverhill.
They're on a variable frequency. To be
I
honest.
think we need to check that out, because what Anna said is that very often the bins are full up or they've burst open the bags, and I know I've seen it where people put their bags down by where the bin is sited, but it may be we need to look at the bins and make sure that they're better than what they are, and maybe bigger than what they are, and make sure that they're emptied at a regular time.
I think absolutely, we'll have a look at that. I think sizes of bins can be an issue with dog, because it gets really quite heavy in terms of lifting the stuff out.
So perhaps you could just report back to us or something on that one, as that it's been sort of like issued through. That'd be great. Okay, so we've got one item on the work programme. Can I suggest that maybe we consider any future items, and maybe you email them to us, so that we can consider each time we have a meeting that we can discuss whether it can be on the work programme or whatever. But it's something that we need to keep rolling through. So that's the idea of putting this onto the agenda, that we come up with some, ideas and requirements, if you like, really. Okay, we've got dates of the future meetings. Right, now the date of the 12th of March actually clashes with an overview and scrutiny meeting, which several of our members are on that particular committee, so we are suggesting that we move that date of the 12th of March to allow that, because it's a joint ONS meeting, and I think it's more difficult for them to move it than it is for us to move it. So I'm asking or appealing to you as to whether you have any objection to us moving the date of that. And the suggested date at the moment is the 26th of March. Other than that, at the moment the dates stay as they are. Okay. Right, so that's the finality. Thank you very much. I'm sorry it was a very long agenda this evening, so appreciate your patience. It's a very long meeting. All of you have a very nice Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you all in the new year or in the spring.
Thank you.